Hi, I'm Dr. Carmen Morrison. I'm a psychologist and brain coach and one of the founders here at Ally.
And hi, I'm Drew Morrison. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am also a coach and a founder at Ally. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about something that we have seen and heard a lot about, which is children diagnosed with ODD or oppositional defiant disorder, and specifically how to engage with their brains, because it's a little bit different. It's kind of specific. You want to do some targeted stuff. And so Mom, I'd love to start it off with you on, the brain of a child diagnosed with ODD. What's that like,
Right.
and what are some considerations for parents?
Well, and I should just mention that
Yeah.
even if we don't have a diagnosis, all parents deal with oppositional defiant behaviors with their kids. And that can be one of the most difficult and triggering things for us as parents
Mm,
is when we have this kid that simply will not work with us. And the frustration that comes with that. So one of the things that we want to keep in mind is a wonderful concept that comes from Dr. Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, which is that in the brain with regulation or lack of regulation,
mm,
what happens is all of us, but kids in particular, can kind of go from uh, this chaotic side to this rigid side. So when they're rigid, it's like, you can't make me. I don't want to.
mm,
No, that's rigid, right? So we can feel that they're just not willing to move. And then if we do try to assert our will over theirs, then it goes to the other side, which is just this chaotic meltdown, right? This completely unregulated mess. And sometimes as parents, like, neither option is a good option, and both
sure.
options make us feel so helpless and defeated and ineffective. And we love our kids, and so we're trying to do what's helpful for them, and then we're stuck in that
Mm,
place.
yes, absolutely. Well, I know it's so frustrating for parents who are in that place because they want to be able to do something to help, but it's hard to know exactly what
Right.
is not going to be gasoline on the fire, right?
Or that I've already tried 1,000 times and has never worked.
Sure. It's very
Right.
discouraging.
Both of those things can happen. So one of the questions we wanted to play around with today for those parents who are struggling with this, especially right now as we're going back to school and we have all those transitions and those things that can really trigger that no, you can't make me place, that rigid place in our kids, is how we can work with their brains and engage that strength of will in a way
Hmm.
that works both for them, because ultimately we're trying to do what's in their best interest, but then
Hmm.
also works for us as parents. And so one of the key things that I see happen so often and that I have done, I'm a very strong willed person, um, is that we kind of go at our kids like this. Right, it's like an immovable object meets an unopposable force, like you
Mm,
know, and nobody wins, everybody loses. It will never
sure.
work, and yet for some reason we keep trying to do that. Years ago, when I was parenting my own ODD child, which was not you, but
Right, right.
but I had one. Um, I went to a conference and there was a workshop, and it was the strong-willed child, and it had the word child crossed out and the word parent written over top of it. And I was like, oh,
It's too close to home there, huh?
oh yeah. So, but that's the truth, right? Because both of our wills get locked into that battle. So when we think about engaging, one of the first things that I really want to hold out to all of us is to remember that a strong will is a good thing. It's a tough thing to parent, but it's a really good thing in life, because a teenager with a strong will is going to say, no, thank you. I don't want any drugs. And nope, I really don't want to get pregnant before I'm married and settled down. And nope, thank you. I don't want to drop out of high school. Like a strong will that's well shaped is one of the most powerful, healthy tools that an adult can have.
Hmm.
So we want our kids to have strong wills, but our job is to shape it. And when it's really, really strong, and ours is really, really strong, we end up just kind of crumbling each other instead of being able to shape that. So to
Mm.
engage their brains, we want to think more like a bullfighter.
Oh man,
I
watch out.
know, right? So in a bull ring, you have this bull with the horns, think your
Yep.
child, that comes galloping at you, right? And you're like right in the crosshairs. And what a bullfighter does is they have this little red piece of fabric that's going to attract the bull's attention, and it's right in front of them at the beginning. And as the bull comes near, they just step to the side, and the bull goes right on past them. So that's just kind of a picture. Keep that in mind as we think about engaging our child's strong-willed brain, which right in this moment, unshaped is oppositional defiant, but it's just an unshaped strong will. And
Mm.
how shifting that to think about it that way is going to be useful to us. And so to engage that, one of my favorite ways to do that is to use a love and logic approach, which was a parenting approach developed by Klein and Fay, are the authors of that book. But the whole concept there is that we set this up where you're going to choose. We're going to use your strong will to your own advantage. And
Mm.
so, and we were just talking about this a little bit earlier, Drew, of my strong-willed kid,
Yep.
who it was winter and we were getting ready to go out the door to school, and she did not want to put on her coat. Absolutely not. You can't make me. I hate coats. I'm never going to wear coats. This coat is yucky. I hate it.
Right.
No,
Well,
right?
and to set the scene a little bit more too, we lived in Pennsylvania, and so winter
Winter
in
got
the
cold.
northern state, it got cold. So
Yes,
yeah,
thank you. So it actually, there was snow on the ground, so it was a very
right.
cold day. Um,
You need a
and
jacket.
and so rather than making her or going the other extreme and filling in the gap by taking the coat for her so she had it when she got cold, what I said to her was, well, honey, I'm going to wear my coat because I don't like to be cold. And your brother is wearing his coat because he doesn't like to be cold. And your dad is wearing his coat because he doesn't like to be cold. But if you really think you'll be fine being out in the cold without a coat, I guess let's go ahead and try that. So she got her way, right? And I'm putting that in quotes. And we got in the car, and within minutes, 5 minutes, she's sitting in the back seat going, I'm so cold, And then we kill that with empathy. We just respond with all kinds of empathy of, I know, honey, I am so sorry. I know what it's like to feel cold. That's miserable. That's why I brought my coat because I don't like that feeling. I'm so sure that next time when we're going out the door, you'll remember that and you'll think about taking your coat with you. And I did not give her a coat. I did not make it, I didn't take away that discomfort from her, but she had chosen that. Right. So it wasn't like she was angry with me because I didn't make her do that. And sort of it confuses that rigid brain
Mm.
because all of a sudden that rigidity backfires. Like I got what I wanted, except it's not what I want. And
Right.
that
Sure.
confusion is what makes the brain start to rewire. Right.
Mm.
That's a good confusion of like, okay, hey, wait a minute. And then we never had a problem with coats again. We had a lot of other
Mm.
defiant moments, but never about putting your coat on in the middle of winter.
Yeah, we
So
could check
that's
the
what I
coat
mean when
off.
I talk
Yeah.
about, yes, engaging that strong will
Hmm.
and then redirecting it, just like a bullfighter does with the
Yeah.
bull, redirecting it in a way that's going to help their brain wire for the future, even if it means some small discomforts in the moment.
Yeah. But you said something really important in there that I think would be helpful to talk more about, which is rigidity,
Mm.
of rigidity versus what? I think that's a really
Yeah.
important. So what else to talk more
Right.
about that rigidity specifically in this context? How does that apply?
Sure. Well, yeah, and I'll borrow this from Dr. Dan Siegel, which is he kind of imagines it as a river of well-being. If we're in the middle of this river, things are regulated and they flow. But one bank of the river is rigidity, and the other side of the river is chaos. And
Mm,
sometimes our ODD kids go like, "Nyep," and hit rigidity, and then they go to the other side, and melt down and have a total temper tantrum chaos, and just
mm,
kind of go from bank to bank and never find the flow in the middle, which is what our job is as parents, is to help them begin to find that place where they can flow in between those two extremes.
mm. Yeah, well, I can see how that is very disorienting for a parent then,
Oh man.
to try and keep up with or track that, especially if you're coming from that perspective that I have to be on top of them or I have to be a step ahead.
Mm.
That's exhausting.
Yeah, or even more so, what came to mind is the feeling that I would get as a parent of, I'm going to be a failure. I'm not
Mm,
going to get this right. I'm going to screw up my kid, and I'm going
mm,
to fail. And so we have a lot of our own stuff that gets hooked in those moments,
mhm,
because of how people are going to judge us, how other people are going to view us. A lot of times that's family. So family members can be really judgy about what we should be doing, and if only we would do this, our kid would be like that. And I
mhm,
remember all of that and trying to read parenting books and go, yep, that's not going to help my kid, because they would all talk about these normal moldable kids, and it
mm,
didn't seem to really help with that really rigid or chaotic, strong-willed kid.
yeah.
So I think there's a lot of self-compassion that we have to have,
Mm,
as we do this parenting, and to realize it's not about getting it perfect moment to moment. It's about staying with it and
mhm,
working with the way our kid's brain is wired so that we can reshape it.
mhm. Yeah. Well, one of the things that came up as you were talking just then, actually, for me, was a parent's own conceptualization of parenting and what it
Mm,
looks like to be a parent. I know
right.
a lot of the parents that I've talked with sometimes have a hard time with escaping maybe the picture of parenting that they've had that they don't want to continue.
Right.
But in those moments, and we talked about this a lot, of when your brain is shut off and you're kind of in that fight or flight place, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Which we do
uh,
as parents. We get there.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your brain can go back to what's familiar because that's how your brain
Mhm.
works, which is something that you don't really want to perpetuate as as a parent. So,
Mhm.
how would you say parents? What's a way to navigate that space when you're feeling your brain go into that shut off place, even partially, and you're feeling those default or familiar,
Mhm.
unwanted techniques coming up?
I'll tell you what, I think we should probably, tell me what you think. I think we should probably do a whole segment on that, just that piece,
Sure.
because that
Yeah.
merits a whole conversation of its
Yeah.
own. But I think
Yeah.
the first thing we need to do is to kind of know our own story. So I like your words of expectations. So if my expectation of parenting is that I'm always in control,
Mhm.
you will fail. Like
Just
that's
setting
not
yourself
gonna
up
happen.
for
Oh my
upset
goodness.
feelings,
Like
right?
if you want to be sure to like feel a mess all the time, just go with that one. The other one that we can also maybe have had modeled for us, or that we're reacting to a lot of control and we're going to the other extreme, is just a passive parenting style, where we just are never wanting our children to be upset in any way, and so we're just giving them all that they want. And then those times when we really just can't because it's not in their best interest, then we have these terrible, chaotic meltdowns. So I think those models of parenting that we have in our own experience of being parented feed in a lot. But I really do think we should do a whole segment just on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And-
I
But
that's a hard place of shifting,
yeah,
shifting,
oh,
adding something new
yeah,
and
yeah,
putting in something that you want there as a parent, so that you
right.
can start feeling better about that experience. I know.
Yeah, so because we have
Yeah.
to rewire our brains
Yep.
before we can help our kids' brains rewire into a more healthy developmental
Yeah.
place. So for
Yeah.
for here for today, especially as
Yeah.
we just start starting back to school, I know a
Mhm.
lot of parents are dealing with a lot of these kinds of really rigid, defiant behaviors. I think let's just kind of list off some things. I always
Yeah.
like to bring it home and make it practical. So really see if you can start thinking about, how to engage my child's will in a way that doesn't do this, but that
Mm-hmm.
comes alongside of it and then just redirects it. And so I gave you an example with the winter coat, but it's using kind of the letting the child have a couple choices so that
Mm,
their will is being exercised, where all of the choices are going to work to help them learn and develop what they need to learn and develop. And so that takes a little bit of time to practice that. So, have the concept and go out and give it a try. Really
yeah.
works well if you and your partner can work together and kind of spot each other to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a really useful thing. But that so we want to engage that by coming up with some choices, all of which will work for the bottom line. We need to get you to school. Whether you wear a coat to school or you don't wear a coat to school, we need to get you to school. So, how do you want to do this? And then we use empathy, lots of empathy when the consequence of their choice is not what they expected. No, I told you so's. Ooh, that's a big rule. No, I told you so's.
Mm,
Verbally or non-verbally. Sometimes we could do that with our own rolled eyes or or like our ways of saying I told you so without saying it, but just empathy. Like, I know how hard it is when I make a choice and then I don't like what happens afterwards, but I'm
mm-hmm.
sure. So it's empathy. So engage, empathy. And then at the end of that, we wanted to express, just gave 3 E's. That's pretty cool. Engage is empathy, and then express our confidence that they're going to make a different choice next time that'll work better for them.
Mm,
Right. So those are the 3 things. Those are our 3 tips that I'd like to leave parents with to start working with. It's not going to be magic. It's not going to work overnight, and we're not going to develop the skill overnight, but it will work because we're working with the way our children's brains wire and rewire instead of just kind of reinforcing it and coming against that. So if you
mm-hmm.
like this video, please hit the like button. If you'd like more tips and ways of working with your own brain and your child's brain, please hit subscribe so you can get notifications as that comes up.
And especially with our future segments on parenting, we'll have a lot more pieces for that as far as what you can do. So stay tuned and follow us along as we go.
And be sure and check out the links below for some of our learning modules that help us with some of these parenting pieces. Also put a link there for our course, The Ultimate Parenting Reset, where we will coach you through step by step how to do this and apply these kinds of things with your kids. So stay tuned for more tips on parenting, oppositional defiant behaviors, and we'll see you next time.